Welcome to Toffee TV. It is part of our Overseas Blues section, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Clay from the Nashville Evertonians, all the way over from Nashville to watch Everton take on Wolves on Sunday. And how are you finding it?
It's been great. I've been here for a couple days. This is a trip we've been trying to do for, I think, about 2 years. 2 years we've been trying to put the group together to come over. Ended up being a lot bigger group coming to the game than I was anticipating. So we've got about a dozen folks in town right now. We have another 9 showing up before the match tomorrow. We've had our own. We're spread out. They can't put us all together, obviously.
No.
But we're all in the Upper Gladys for the game on Sunday.
Oh, superb.
Yeah.
Superb. So before we'll go back to the game and obviously the Nashville Evertonians in a bit, but I want to know how a guy from Tennessee, Nashville, supports Everton and why. What's your origin story?
Okay, well, it's a little bit weird. So originally I'm from Indiana.
Okay.
And so
Love the middle, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The middle quality.
Yeah. And so I had moved all around. I was a press officer in college sports for about 10 years. Okay. And the first place that I worked in, I was a student, was at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. And Muncie, if anybody watched Parks and Rec, Muncie is it's what Pawnee is based off of.
Right, okay.
Which is like, I don't really watch a lot of that show, but it's my favorite little piece of trivia.
Yeah.
And while I was there, the captain of Everton was Davey Weir. Yeah. And this is another good piece of trivia. David Weir played college soccer in America.
Yeah.
And he played for the University of Evansville, which is a school of about 2,000 people in my hometown, directly next to the high school that I went to. And when he was at Evansville, he was their all-time leading scorer. He was a center forward for Evansville, and he took us to the national semifinal in 1990. And I've run into him since. I've not run into Davey Weir since, but I've run into this person since. And I told him, I was like, if it wasn't for you, Evansville would have had a national championship. And that person was Alexi Lawless, because Alexi Lawless was the guy who shut down Davey Weir in the national semifinal. Okay. And so, you're picking teams to follow. Obviously, there are American ties with Everton, but, the small school next to where I went to school, like, that's about as close as you can get. And, the big difference between the U.S. and the U.K., in my experience, and when it comes to the teams that you follow, is that a lot of it comes from local pride, sort of the way that we feel about colleges. And so I don't really have a local team from the UK, obviously, but I have the captain of this team was very local to me. So I can kind of tie in that way. So that's kind of what like flipped the switch fully.
Oh, okay. So when you seen him at Everton and at that story.
Yeah, and that was at the end of his career. Like he was kind of done. So he was moved on to Rangers and he has a little run. But yeah, like David Weir, I mean, I've got his book in my car back home, and on the off chance that I'm ever in Evansville and he's in Evansville, I can run it over, Why so, just.
So when did you actually make that choice? Then when were you chosen?
That would have been
as the back of your t-shirt.
We had to do shirts. We had to do that, right?
Got it.
But that would have been probably around 2008, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there.
So Tim Howard here as well.
Yeah,
just to
absolutely.
refresh that for you.
And I knew about, obviously Joe Max Moore had been here, Preki.
What a guy.
Yeah, hey, I'm a very big MLS guy. So
Johnston, of course, played in MLS as well, didn't he?
Yeah, there've been lots of ties over the years, and in the years since, like Marcus Hahnemann, Brian McBride, we didn't even mention him.
Yeah.
So
Paul Rydell, who obviously lives over there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he still works for SKC, right?
Yeah.
So there's been all those ties, but the big one for me is, the career defender who was the all-time leading goal scorer for the University of Evansville.
I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it, with the college sports, how it seems mad when you don't understand it. Like certainly from the UK, and then you start you start learning about it. I was telling you off camera before about a good mate of mine who lives in America now, but from Liverpool. When he was at Gainesville, we went up to see him. We were in Orlando and went up to see him, spent a couple of days with him, and he took me to the college.
The swamp?
He
took you to the swamp?
He took no. He took me. I don't know. It might be called the swamp.
He
took me to the American football stadium.
The swamp. That's what it's called.
Yeah, we get 85,000, and I was just like, say it again. And he was like, yeah, we get 85,000 watching the kids. But I was like, when I was at university playing football, soccer football, we get like 130 people watching. He's like, these kids are like superstars, and you're like, wow. And the stadium was amazing.
He'll definitely.
So it's the swamp. That's what it's called.
That's what it's called.
Right,
he'll appreciate this shout out. But one of the guys I told you, there's a couple people in my life that are Everton fans because of like the relationship I have. One of them, his name's Clyde. He's watching this. He's going to appreciate me giving him a shout out my name. Yeah. He used to cover LSU football, and LSU they play in front of 100,000 every game. That's crazy, isn't it? They call theirs Death Valley. So there's all kinds of good nicknames. I remember I'd moved around a bit, and so I was working in Texas, and the last day that I worked for this school called Lamar, we were playing at Texas A&M, and I was down on the field for a football game between Lamar and Texas A&M, and I think it was 105, it might have been 107,000 people were at the game, and to that point was the most people to ever watch a college football game in Texas. And then the next day I got in a car, drove to Atlanta to the new school I was going to be working at, and I had to work a college soccer game the next day. And so I go down there, get set up, we're setting up the stats, and right at kickoff, right before kickoff, the coaches come over to shake hands, and coach turns to me and goes, "You're a long way from College Station now." And I look over in the stands, there's about 30 people.
It's incredible. Yeah. We will get back onto it in a minute, but why is that with college sports? Why is that? Is that just because it's local, there's this connection because there's not a sports club everywhere?
We're losing it a little bit in the local, especially with the smaller schools. I typically worked at, we call them mid-majors, but they're schools that are typically, at most 20,000 students, kind of regional basis. Right. So those schools have certainly suffered as TV has become more and more prominent. Fans pick up on bigger teams. But especially for college football, where I'm from, college basketball is much bigger deal in Indiana than football. It's the closest approximation that we would have to like Premier League following. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
You will not find the same level of passion pretty much anywhere except for like University of Kentucky. Like they play in a 20,000 seat basketball arena. It's full every week. They have this grand history. Where I'm from, Indiana University, I grew up with it. We would go to those games, packed house. I think it's 19,000 in Assembly Hall, and they unfortunately haven't been pretty good for a while. They won a title in '87, and it's been downhill ever since. I don't know if that sounds familiar in any way.
'87, last time we won the league, so there you go. Yeah.
So
there's a bit of synergy there. Between
Indiana has has 5 national titles, which is among the most in college basketball, but they haven't won one since '87, and I'm just like, well, I guess I really was chosen for Everton. That's the background.
You weren't glory hunting, that's for sure. So it was about 2000. And can you remember the first game you kind of watched?
I can't really. It's watching it now is so different than what it used to be, and I do remember. I would try and catch what was on. I remember watching the FA Cup final. But like it's sort of bits and pieces because it's like, I got this feed that worked for 30 minutes and then and unfortunately I remember I'm typically a positive person, but some of those early games that I remember watching, one of them is that Arsenal 6-1, I think that was 2009. And then but tough. The funny thing is so up before Hummel, between that, Hummel sells big guy jerseys. They sell jerseys that fit me, shirts that fit me, and it's the first time that they'd sold shirts that fit me since they had Le Coq Sportif.
Okay.
Now the problem with that is that when they had Le Coq Sportif, one of the guys that I was most excited about because he scored 2 just worldy goals in the same match was Jack Rodwell against. I don't even remember the name of this. It had a
Shiga Almanac.
Yeah. So for a decade, I had a Jack Rodwell shirt. That was all I had. I was just like, I can't buy another one.
Against Man United, got
Yeah,
sent off in
hey.
a derby. You know,
Yeah.
he had the pot
And
of
they had to
history.
apologize after he got sent off
yeah.
because he didn't touch him.
We're still getting done now.
Yeah,
by
yeah.
referees, but that was back in 2010, wasn't it? But,
Yeah, like, yeah, I was just,
2011.
while, you know, he didn't exactly cover himself in glory in that Sunderland documentary, and I was just like, I'm going to get questions about this Rodwell shirt.
Peeling it off at the back.
Yeah.
Peeling it
So,
off.
fortunately, now Hummel's around, I have probably too many shirts.
Never have too many shirts.
Yeah, you know.
When was the first time you got to see Everton play then?
Well, the first time I saw them play in person was here several years ago. I came over and did a whole run through the country. I went to 9 matches in 16 days. Fantastic. And yeah, it was
good experience.
Yeah, it was. I had some really good games, and unfortunately, the ticket that cost me the most was a scoreless draw. So, but the first game I came to was Boxing Day in 2013, and that was not ideal. It was Everton hadn't lost a home match in a calendar year, back when things were good, and they're facing foot of the table Sunderland. About 20 minutes in, Tim Howard gets a red card, and Everton dominated the game, just absolutely dominated the game, but couldn't score and lost 1-0. And I'm like, all right, so I thought I couldn't bring any bad luck, and they hadn't lost. Well, they lost. It's the worst team in the league. There's that. And then the only American in the side gets sent off. I'm just like...
You were in then.
Yeah.
That was the hook. You were never getting out. We were never letting you out from there.
One of the kids I used to cover when I was in Ohio, her first ever game, playing against Indiana, goes in there, a few minutes in, gives up an own goal. So the coach calls her over right after she gives the own goal, and he's like, it only goes up from here.
That's it, yeah. Don't worry about it.
It'll only get better.
It'll only get... If someone would have said to you that day, Clay, don't worry, it only gets better from here.
It did later that week.
Okay.
But looking at the table right now,
no.
Later that week, like 3 days later, Southampton came to Goodison Park.
Yeah.
Seamus scored just an unreal goal, and then Southampton equalized, and then Rom scored the winner, and then
that felt good.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about like trying to catch the players outside in the car park.
Right, yeah.
And so I just kind of happened upon it, and then I got to meet Seamus and Romelu and all these guys. So I got photos with them, and I was like, this is what I hoped the other day was.
Yeah.
And so and that was just an unbelievable
Doing
season.
it that way was better though. Imagine if we'd have beat Sunderland and then lost the next one.
Oh,
At least you've had the low, and then you had the high.
Well, and if you're gonna come over and watch Everton, I mean that's the way to do it. I feel like to get the full experience.
Get the full experience.
You get the joy, and you get just the how on earth did this team do that?
Yeah. As you're well aware of, we're quite good at those kind of ones where you say, you scratch your head and think.
It's gotten to the point where it's gotten to the point where the how on earth did this team do that is something I say about the positive ones.
It is. That's not great, is it?
Yeah.
That isn't great. So from then, you've just been following. Obviously, NBC signed that big deal and made access to the Premier League a lot easier, didn't it? From there, so you weren't having to search around for dodgy streams as such.
That was a big part of it, and then also like you have their scarf over here somewhere. I was very active in the Atlanta Everton group.
Right.
And so when I moved to Georgia, when I had the free Saturday or Sunday, which was rare in the field I used to work in, I would go down to, at that point they were at a place called Fido. I'd go down to Fido, and there was a big group to watch Everton. A lot of weekends. As I understand it, it's still pretty big. I haven't been down there in a few years though. Yeah. So we got pretty involved.
In actually from Bridget.
I saw that.
Yeah. From Atlanta Evertonians.
I met her in Florida.
Yeah, she's great. Well, she told us all about it. Great.
Yeah.
She was here, and then she was going back for the Florida Cup. So she was great, Bridget. Yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't part of the Atlanta group whenever I was down there. Yeah. But the same guy was kind of running things, and then Nashville, our local club, Nashville SC, our first ever MLS match. They've been around for a while, but our first ever MLS match was against Atlanta. And so we had a lot of the Atlanta group at our pub the next morning.
Right.
And that was that was the United game where they, for no reason at all, disallowed the winner in the last minute. And so we had
Chris Cabana.
yeah, I'll tell you, we had one hell of a 2-minute celebration.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. But we have shared our pub for years with Manchester United, and then the following 10 minutes was not nearly as fun.
No. I mean, again, talking about being robbed, that was scandalous. And, same fella, of course, who come up with the Rodri decision.
Who doesn't love a Monday morning apology? It seems like it happens a lot. And
that's it.
Yeah.
That sorts it out. So from there, then back to Nashville.
Yeah. And so I lived in Nashville previously for a couple of years, and then I lived in Nashville now I live actually just outside Nashville in Murfreesboro, about a half hour down the road. Okay. And I restarted our group about 3 years ago and kind of built it back up, and I've been there for about 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's always been Everton fans in Nashville. Like I said, I lived there previously, and after the World Cup, there was like the 2014 World Cup. Yeah. There was a push to kind of like turn it into a thing, and unfortunately,
defense performance.
Yeah, exactly. And there's kind of been this. It's very funny, like Nashville now versus what it was even 5 years ago. Anybody who followed the sport in Nashville felt like we all knew each other.
Right. Yeah,
and so all the people who were trying to run Premier League fan clubs, like we all knew each other. We all kind of went to the same bars. There's not very many soccer bars, as we call them over there. And so now that we have our own club, things have kind of gotten pretty interesting. A lot of our members are season ticket holders for the local club, and people have hopped on because they're like, well, I follow this team, so I should follow the sport. And so we've got some very new Everton fans that are kind of learning at a real tough time to learn how to like the club. So all the credit goes to it. I mean, that's one of the things I like to joke about is like we weren't born to like following this team out of the womb, But man, it would have been better if we got something early on.
Something just to hook you.
just something like. The most annoying thing is like watching, of course, our rivals just gain all new fans who've only been watching for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. It's the most annoying thing in the world to me.
Because they're winning, all sorts. Yeah. I know we just a couple of years of doing all right. It would probably be a big help, wouldn't it?
Oh man!
I think that's the biggest thing, and obviously, it's so frustrating because I have seen Everton being the best and seen us win trophies, and I'm like that to me youngest, I'm trying to say it. We'll get better, but you look and thinking, will it? So for people like yourself who. And everybody in Nashville and everywhere else all over the world who are Evertonians who can't just go the game because it's down the road and we haven't got that. It is difficult to hook people in when you go, this team, come and watch this team. It's not very good. Doesn't win very often. How do you keep that going and that enthusiasm going?
So one of the things that I always tell people, because I've been a fan of the sport for a while, and I've been a fan of this particular team for a lot longer than most people in America have probably watched it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's really something that people have been playing the sport for over 100 years in the U.S. The U.S. has a very proud history in it, and I think that it sometimes gets overlooked unfairly. There's just a real bad period. But one of the things I always get questions like, well, who should I follow? Who should be my team? And my question has always been the same. I don't tell them to go be an Everton fan, but I tell them, like, watch some games, do your research, like, find something that speaks to you in a way that would make you feel inspired to go, do more with this club.
Yeah.
And so similar to the way, like, I had a local tie, and like that's something that hooked me in. And then you find out about the community work. That's a big deal to a lot of people. You find out about the history. That's obviously a big deal to a lot of people, even if it is now perhaps too far in the past. So I don't ever really try to force anything on them.
Yeah, of course,
and I think by looking at it that way, like that's the way that you can get a more like engaged sort of fan base.
Yeah.
And that's what Everton now is fortunately starting to do, because the way that you do that is you tell your story kind of in addition to what's happening on the field. Like you tell your story about the community stuff, about, the ties to the history. Like, and that's where you can kind of pull people where it doesn't always have to be like, well, you guys got battered by Tottenham the other day. Like, because that's unsustainable. You're not always going to win. And regardless of what the neighbors think, you're not always going to win.
No.
And so what are you going to do when you're not winning? And that's how you can kind of find ways to like shape your identity. And I think that is something that I think speaks to a lot of the fans that are looking to support something. Like they're looking to win games, but they're looking to feel something where we don't have the local ties. We don't have something that we can walk to every week. We have to have some reason to like this team.
Hook you in.
And so that's kind of the way I look at it.
No, it's a good way. And listen, you're absolutely right in sport. In football, you're not going to win all the time. Someone wins, someone loses, and we have been losing a bit more than we've been winning, and hopefully that will change, and then what a day that'll be when we do achieve something. But it's fascinating, but it's amazing as well that the amount of people that do actually jump on and go, I will follow Everton because of this reason or this reason.
Well, and that's something that I wish, obviously it happens on Twitter like every 3 weeks. There's something about supporters that aren't from Liverpool and all this stuff. And it's annoying. I understand it to a certain extent, but it is annoying. And one of the things that like I feel like I have to say is like, hey, like it costs us a lot of money to come watch this team play. Like this trip is going to cost me probably $1,500, minimum. And like that's how many season tickets could you buy for that? And that's to watch one game. And I don't mean that to lord it over. I'm just saying it's a tough thing to do, to wake up at 6 a.m. to watch us lose to some team we shouldn't lose to. Like there's effort. So the fact that people feel engaged and invigorated enough to do these things, even when the team's not winning, is not something that should be frowned upon in any way. That is a testament to the power that the club holds, even in its bad moments. And I think sometimes that gets lost, like how much of an effort it takes. Like, and that's where it's easy. In the U.S., it's easy. There are places that have hardcore Everton fans that they're lucky to see a match sometimes. Like, and we should celebrate, like that the club can pull, what is at its heart a community club can pull from all over the world.
Absolutely.
And, their main goal, like, not their main goal, but one of their biggest tenets is celebrating their community. And this is people around the world that feel, that identify with their community. And that's a really cool thing the club has going for it, and it should be celebrated.
Yeah, listen, I've never been that, you should only support Everton from Liverpool and all of that stuff, because that's been, in some respects, part of our problem, why we haven't grown, because we have looked too close to home, whereas our neighbours will take anyone from anywhere and have been ahead with that, and that helps by growth and everything else. And I think in general, it is put out, and it's certain things on social media, Wolves and all that, and different things. But I think the majority of Evertonians, you're a blue. That's the biggest thing. You're a blue nose, Doesn't matter where you're from, you're a blue. That's the thing. Yeah,
and I think also some people in the U.S., we don't always necessarily understand a Scouse sense of humor. Sometimes it's like
there'll be playful stuff. And people, we've got Ned in here. Ned's a wolf, but he's an Evertonian.
It's like I gave him a poster earlier. And it says, if y'all know your history, which is something that we have on our scarves, and kind of rehashing that in the way we talk down south. and we got some stick for it on the scarf. And so when I did the member gifts this year for the poster, I was like, I want the y'all to be the biggest thing on there. Because
why not?
That's who we are. I mean, we could show it if you want. It's right there. Yeah.
I don't know whether it would be caught, but there you go, it is.
Yeah.
And if y'all know your history, it is. I mean, look how big the y'all is. You can see that.
Yeah, it's
and that jumps out at you, but that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the same thing, you know.
And the guy in the
messaging.
Pittsburgh group saw that and said, we should do one that says, if Yens know your history, because that's...
You could have your little play on that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately everyone knows what the messaging is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're over here for obviously the Wolves game at the weekend, which is a huge game.
Yeah.
It has turned into a huge game. How long's this trip been booked for?
So we had booked a weekend in Liverpool for 2 years, and we were trying to find something.
Wow.
And so we had it booked for a spring, and then we had it booked for a fall, and then we had it booked for a spring. And then last year, I was like, all right, we're going to shoot for sometime in March. And that's around spring break for a lot of people. It hasn't mattered for most of our group, but there are a few folks that spring break matters, you know, for lining up, and myself included. And the only home match in March was Wolves. So, and this sounds sort of weird. I didn't want it to be a derby game.
Yeah.
Like, because there's just so much going on with that. Like, I wanted it to kind of be a standalone thing where we can make it our own thing. But not only that, like a big group of people coming over can have the blue carpet, if you will, rolled out for them. So like we had a tour this morning. We're going to this event tonight. We're going to go to the football museum tomorrow. We're going to catch a train, and you know, if nothing happens, they can at least focus on the positivity for Everton at the football museum. And then we're going to come back and go to the Everton women match, and then Sunday will be all match day. So just down there and do as many things as possible. And so by it not being, you know, a derby game or one of those bigger games, it kind of gives us a little bit more freedom to do some fun stuff. And maybe next time it'll be a derby game. But this time it's lined up quite right for what I wanted. Most of my group has never been to Goodison before, so it's like a good...
I mean, you're saying it's not a big game. It's one of...
Well, you know what I mean.
No, I understand, but actually, in context, it's one of Everton's biggest games in years. It really is. That's how big this game is. And so you're going to be there experiencing the atmosphere.
In the Gladys. All of us are in the Gladys,
When it'll go off, there will be limbs when we score at the weekend. And it'll all be about the 3 points. So how many did you say? 21 altogether, is it?
So I think it's 21. It might be 20, but it's 2021. Like I said, we have a dozen of us here. I know we have 9 coming tomorrow. So
it's going to be a good break and a good chance to meet up. And
and I'm actually kind of looking for... One of the things that is so weird for American Everton fans is that we're the weird ones in our like groups of soccer friends.
Right.
You know, like oh, you're an Everton supporter. You know, like, okay, there's like 3 of you in this bar, or there's 4 of you in this bar. And so it's wild for some of our fans that come out to the pub when we have a good pub showing, which unfortunately hasn't happened a lot this season. No. But when we have a good one, we have like 20, 30 people there. They're like, oh man, there's a lot of blue here.
That's it,
And so they're going to be in a situation for the first time where it's not 30 people and it's amazing. It's 38,000 people, and like it's the first time that a lot of my friends in this group are going to experience being.
And that'll be the hook.
Yeah, you know, being part of being a part of it, and feeling the hold that the team actually holds. You know. And
the Z cars and the hairs on the back of your neck and all that when they come out. It's going to be what a day.
Yeah, I need him to score on the Gladys end. I need that.
Go down the Gladys Street, just win the game. It'll be what a trip that'll be.
I have some worries if it's a win tomorrow night about a couple of our members that got to hop on they might have to hop on some trains in an interesting state.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
but, hey, all part of the fun.
Absolutely, can't wait.
All part of the fun. Clay, lovely to meet you. Thanks for talking to us.
Glad to finally be in this place,
Yeah, there you go. You've seen it from afar, now you're here, part of it.
Just have to close my eyes when I come down the hall.
Yeah, no, I know. There is some red around it. There you go. Big thanks to Clay for coming in, and don't forget, you want to get your origin story into us, just hit us up, and you've done it. And we'll talk you through it. So, thanks for watching. See you later.